Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky. And we're back for another episode of Joe on Joe. This week is Joe and Joe Illustrated. Yeah, that's right. I'm staring at a comic book in front of me, and I had to remember what this week was. I'm excited. We're getting into G.I. Joe Special Missions issue number 4 with that great Mike Zeck upside-down Lifeline cover. You guys know that cover. It's awesome. We'll be talking about it page by page, panel by panel. New listeners, welcome aboard. If you're unfamiliar with this show or new to it, the majority of the back issues of this show are watch-alongs or read-alongs. So we've covered all the episodes of the old cartoons, DIC Extreme and Sunbow. And I've also covered every issue of the Larry Hama Real American Hero stuff. And I'm slowly working my way through the special mission stuff. Literally, we like to say page by page, panel by panel. Just kind of dig into it instead of a kind of a top-down review. It's more of a page by page. What are we doing here? So you returning listeners, thanks again for joining us. When I say us, I mean me. You know what I'm talking about. And yeah, so look in the back catalog of the podcast and find the episode that correlates to the issue you're reading or the episode you're watching and listen along. That's kind of how I've designed this entire show. Excited because I'm heading up to just a short little while, 2 months, I think. I'll be going to, Operation Codename Iowa. We'll be out in Iowa for that big G.I. Joe show. So listeners, if there's anyone in the sound of my voice that's going to be at Codename Iowa, reach out and let me know. We'll say hi and meet up, and I'll be at that dinner the first night or whatever. And we're going to have a lot of fun going there with Mike Irizarry of our friend over at What's on Joe Mind, which is a great podcast you need to listen to. And, this is the most important thing. I'm not starting it right away because I want to build up a couple episodes cushion for me. Because I know I've just been having slowness in getting episodes. But guess what? I have officially started. I've started doing episodes, watch-along episodes for G.I. Joe Renegades. We did the first episode. It's awesome. And I know there's a lot of you out there that are Renegades fans and you've been wanting to talk about it. And so it's on. Game on, man. I will be doing some outreach myself to some people that I can kind of remember saying that they wanted to do Renegades. But if you're hearing this and you want to do Renegades, jump in. There's not a ton of episodes for it, so I know those slots will fill up quickly, but it's going to be a lot of fun. The first episode is great. I explained on that episode, so there'll be more there. But basically, I've never really watched all of Renegades. I've always kind of waited to do it for the show, so I've seen it in bits and pieces. So it's very fresh to me. I really enjoyed that first episode. Thought it was awesome. And my guest for that first episode is Dynamite. So I can't wait for y'all to hear it. Probably start airing it probably October. I think today's mid-September. Yeah, probably we'll start that in October. So that gives us some time. So if you're hearing this, you want to talk about Renegades, reach out and we will do that. It's all over Zoom. Super easy. Let me know. And you can certainly reach out via Gmail, email, joeandjoepod@gmail.com. That's how to find me personally, or go to any of the social media apps at Joe on Joe Pod. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just, DM me and say, let's do it. And we'll make it happen. It's super easy. We go in and Zoom and we have a lot of fun and we watch an episode together, etc. and so on and so forth. So today we're talking about Special Missions. First thing I noticed when I pulled out my old copy of Special Missions number 4, and I have not read Special. I've reread the G.I. Joe books more recently, even without, doing it for the show. Like I would occasionally dip in and read some issues here and there. I have not read Special Missions since I bought them in 1987, 88. So when I look at this comic book, I would have been 12. That was right when I first started getting into G.I. Joe, getting into reading comics, period. This book has been read, man. I need to pick up a cleaner copy because that'll make me happy. I'm not getting rid of this copy though, but it is dog-eared. There's so much spine break. I read the heck out of this book. I really love it. I think it's probably why I really like Lifeline as a character. I had his figure, of course. But yeah, that's the first thing I noticed is my copy is beat up. But it's great, and it's a great cover, and it's a really fun story on the inside. Now, one of the things we do for Joe and Joe Illustrated is I try to kind of place you in the moment. For all the Joe books, we did like what movies and TV were out there. So for this, I'm trying to turn to something a little different, and I'm looking at music. So this is cover dated April of 97, or I'm sorry, 87. And these are 3 to 4 months. That cover date is 3 to 4 months ahead of when it actually was on the stands, right? So this was, so in April, it probably actually came out in January of 1987. The date of April was meant for that's the month the newsstands were supposed to take it off the stand. So I'm going to be looking back at January of 87, which had some cool albums. We got a Husker Du double album called Warehouse Songs and Stories. I'm not a huge Husker Du fan, but I recognize them, their importance to music. And I know a lot of any Husker Du fans that I do know are massive Husker Du fans. So that's kind of cool. The Alan Parsons Project put out an album called Gowdy. I've never heard that. There's one huge one here that I'm saving. And yeah, really the only album to talk about this month. Got to be honest. January 20th, 1987. Bruce Willis, The Return of Bruno. Absolutely amazing album. I mean, it's terrible, but it's amazing. As a kid, I was like, wait a minute, Bruce Willis can star in TV, he can star in film, he can also do music, and he can sell me wine coolers, Seagram's wine coolers. As a 12-year-old, I was like, I want to try them. Bruce Willis is telling me to try them. You could not have found a bigger Bruce Willis fan as a kid. Also, as I grew up in life, could not find a bigger Bruce Willis fan than me. So, The Return of Bruno, all time. I absolutely own it. Absolutely own the CD. Absolutely own digital, whatever. I've got it. It's ready to be listened to at any moment, at a moment's notice. He put out a second album, and I have that too. I forget what that one's called, but The Return of Bruno is the big one. Because remember, it's called The Return of Bruno, right? So you're like, well, wait a minute. Who's Bruno? Where did he go? Is this a sequel? So many questions. This is the Leonard Part 6 of albums, right? It introduced the idea of Bruno as that was his old nickname from when he was a bartender back in the day. So that got in my head. I was like, that's amazing. And guess who grew up and ended up with a nickname as he was a bartender in college? Yeah, this guy. So like, it all comes together, and it all points right back to Bruce Willis. Guess who's bald? Me. Guess who's losing his mind? Me. It's just all about Bruce Willis. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers these days. He's not doing that well. Big respect, big ups to Bruce. But The Return of Bruno, January. So you're reading Special Missions and you're going, respect yourself. Nah, 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 nah. Respect yourself. You know, or you're singing maybe you're singing Under the Boardwalk to yourself. I don't know. But you're humming songs from The Return of Bruno while you're reading G.I. Joe Special Missions #4 by Larry Hama and Herb Trimpe. I talked about the cover a little bit. It's great. It's an upside down Lifeline with an overhead view of the October Guard. So it's the kind of cover that I absolutely adore, where it's a scene from the comic, but it's technically not. This never actually technically happens, but it is a cover that leads you to believe this is the adventure, and it pretty much sums up the adventure, except when he's hung up in the trees. It's not the October Guard that goes underneath him. It's actually the Joes. So it's a little bit of a cheat, but I love it though. And the like, especially as a kid, to see this extreme angles, these extreme angles be played out, where your overhead shots kind of maybe at a 20-degree angle of the October Guard. It's not directly overhead, but like 20-degree angle, and then an overhead shot of an upside down Lifeline. So you're just seeing, the positions, the body language, all in just these different. It gets great. Like, it's really, it's not your typical camera shot for a typical cover of an action book at the time. So that really stands out to me. And then you have the white and red coloring, which I still think is a brilliant color scheme. It's easy, obviously, the red and white for the Red Cross stuff. But to actually do his whole uniform like that, I think is just a really strong choice, because it's a good looking suit. Say what you will, the figure, whatever. It's weird. He's a pacifist, but he carries a gun, all that stuff, whatever. As a figure, I've always thought Lifeline looked really, really, really sharp and really popped. So he looks great on the cover. No Holds Barred is the name of it. I guess I was like, my brain was just going, what is that reference to? But I guess it references right towards the very end. Larry Hama on the script, Herb Trimpe on the pencils and inks. Ooh, Trimpe did his own inks too. That's cool. It shows, man. George Roussos did the coloring, Joe Rosen lettering, Bob Harris, editor, and Shooter, rest in peace, editor-in-chief. This has the same coloring problem that I talked about last time, and my new the Skybound reprints of these are a little buried right now because that box is so big. I kind of bundled it away, so I didn't have a chance to look. I wonder if they cleaned it up. I don't like. I said it before. I don't like these colors. And it's the process they were using at the time. There's a lot of books that suffer from this. I just don't like it. I don't think they look good. It was a really rough interim time between traditional old school coloring styles and maybe like what eventually would be computer coloring in a couple of years. This whole book suffers from it. I'm not a big fan of the printing process. However, I mean, the colors themselves look great. It's literally the printing process. Like, just things are like registers are off, and the artwork gets really muddy in some places. If you're seeing it, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure else how to describe it, but so it's not great. I'll say that. If I were the editors at the time, I wouldn't be happy with. And see, this was printed. Where was this printed? This wasn't printed out of. Let me see. It should say here in the indicia, right? They weren't printed at what's the Illinois, not the Sparta, Illinois, is where they printed for a long time. I don't see it in the indicia where this was printed, but yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe I'll look that up, see if I could try to nail that down. Because I know eventually everything left, like everything was at Sparta, Illinois, and it left at mid-'80s. So I wonder if this is part of the problem. That is total speculation, though, so don't run off with that as an answer, because I know everyone likes to talk about old 40-year-old printing processes. I know that's a lot of the hot topic on conversation these days. So don't run off with that being like an actual answer for that. Just know that I don't like it. So we're over the South China Sea, and we've got a PBR with the Joes in it, airplane, and they're flying over this like the sea. It's like the China Sea, so there's water underneath them. There's sand. There's jungle. It's that kind of very Vietnam kind of. They're along the Malay Peninsula, so I wonder if that's Malaysia. I'm assuming. Wild Bill's flying. He name checks Leatherneck. This is smart. Larry Hama rates really so well with getting us always up to speed with the names. It's Leatherneck. How's about doing us a favor? I'm waiting on a clear shot, Wild Bill. And so it's like talking back and forth, even though you can sort of make out who they are, but you kind of can't. So they're in this PBR, and they're flying, and they've got a Hind-E helicopter, which is following them and shooting at them. Now, we know that the Russians fly those Hinds, right? So we're assuming that's who it is. Also, spoiler alert, the October card was on the cover. So, next page. We get, again, some great writing with the name checking. Leatherneck says, "You reckon these bad boys are after our cargo, Roadblock?" So then if you're not familiar with Roadblock responds, affirmative. So these guys were just waiting in the cut for us to pick up that Cobra Firebat. And actually, speaking of printing processes, the dialogue, the word balloons, lettering, that's the word, is terrible in this. It's so thick. There's so much extra black in these. Like, it's hard. I really think I'm going to dig out those new reprints, because this is almost, there's some of these word balloons are just unreadable. And that's a printing thing. That's not like some kind of age thing on my side. These are Like, this is wild. So the Joes found a Cobra Firebat. And I like this name check. He's not in the book at all, but Slipstream lured it out of the Terrordrome with his X-30. And then Block says Slipstream had a rendezvous with the refueling tanker. So we get a nice name check. You could fill in the backstory in your head a little bit, but it still is just these 4 dudes. And then we get a name check for Lifeline. We need firepower, grab a weapon, and that's Leatherneck saying it's a wild Lifeline. And Lifeline says, hey, I'm a non-combatant. My job is to save lives. And Wild Bill says, it's also your job to get those black boxes out of that Firebat before we have to ditch this crate. And then that's when Wild Bill recognizes, quote, the ugly joker in that gunner seat. It's Colonel Breckoff. And that's when they reveal it is truly the October Guard on their case. And they're still shooting at the plane. And they're tearing up Wild Bill's plane here. Like, it's not good. Lifeline, by the way, he's seated atop the Firebat trying to unscrew some things. Picture, what is it? Slim Pickens? Slim Whitman? Slim Pickens? From, How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Strange Glove. When, like that kind of a seat. He's basically, if this were a bomb, he'd be straddled on it. And if they were dropped this out the back door, he would be falling to his Yahoo death, which is what I really was hoping I was going to see, actually, to be honest. So the guys in the helicopter, they kind of realize that they've shot that plane down. Like, they're done. So we get a little backstory filled in here that said that the Russians probably weren't too happy about some tin pot Southeast Asian dictator buying up and installing terror drones this close to Cam Rink Bay. And apparently Cam Rink Bay is a Soviet naval base. So some more Leatherneck riding of Lifeline. It's better to shake a leg. If you can't extract those black boxes and you can't help us return fire, then you got to be as totally useless as I think you are. So, broad picture on this book. Leatherneck is an absolute jerk to Lifeline. But they are all absolutely wonderfully personaed. Like, all of them have a very, very clear perspective on Lifeline's non-combatant, right? Some respect it, some don't. But the characterization in this book is awesome because they've got 4 dudes. You know, Larry gives 4 dudes. He gives 4 kind of different views on it. And it sticks out the whole thing. Everyone's got their opinion. They raise it when they need to. But, like, Leatherneck comes off as just an absolute jerk. But you get it. Like, he shows both sides of the conversation here. Like, we are getting shot and you're not helping. And then he shows that there are skill sets that Lifeline has that, you know, that help the Joes, that if they had followed, we'll get to this, but if they followed Leatherneck's guide, you know, Leatherneck's instructions, they would have been in more trouble, things like that. So it's a really well-balanced book in that regard. And it doesn't give you easy answers when you get to the end. Like, it's just a shockingly deep book about pacifism and the just weaponry and military thought of, like, when is it the right time? Do you have to always lead first with, you know, with fire, shooting at people, you know, like that kind of, with aggression. It's a really cool book wrapped up in a fun little, we got shot down adventure story. And this is kind of where, I might technically started on the previous page, but this is kind of really where it kicks into high gear because he calls them useless. The Russians realize the plane's going down, and Wild Bill says the same. Also, really nice artwork on this whole book from Trimpe. It really is some of his best stuff. I've heard it said that he thinks the Special Missions is his best, and I agree with that. Nice choices on, like, drawing the angle, the planes in the sky, trying to keep us in perspective of where everyone is. The detail in the interior of the plane, like, you don't have to go into that much detail when you're inside the back hatch, but it's so real. It really does look great. Firebat looks awesome. And then he chooses the right time to go to a close-up of Wild Bill, who looks, I don't know, terrified's not the right word, but he knows he's crashing, and he don't look good. So we get to the next page. Lifeline's still trying to get those black boxes out, and he says he gets insulted by Leatherneck again. But Lifeline also had said the only way around these anti-tamper devices is the slow way. In other words, he's going as fast as he can because he's smart enough to know that if they blow up, then the whole mission's tanked anyway. So he can try to hurry up, but it ain't going to happen. And this might be the first time I ever saw, since this was one of my early books, ever saw the phrase, the horseshoe and hand grenades phrase. Well, Leatherneck says, I almost had the cover off, Lifeline does. And Leatherneck responds was, you know what they say about almost? It only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. And I remember that, like, getting it, but not getting it, and kind of having to wrap my head around, what does that mean? And then figuring out what it meant, and then loving that phrase. And we've seen it a million times in all the Joe books since then, but I think this might have been the first time I was exposed to it. And as they're jumping out of the plane, which is a great shot, roadblock going like feet first. This is real reminiscent of like Wolverine jumping, like out of like from the X-Men, like, kind of going face first in the camera, or the Hulk. That's really how he draws roadblock here. He's holding his Ma Deuce. Leatherneck, before he pulls his parachute, turns around and fires off a heat-seeking missile at the helicopter, which 100% connects, and the helicopter goes down. So the October Guard, they also have to bail. Later in the jungle, the book also moves really fast too. Like they don't deal with it doesn't spend a lot of time of them flying, like free falling, and is it scary? Are they going to live? It's kind of like, we know the Joes aren't going to die from, free falling, so why bother with it, and there was no other threat in the sky, so there's no real danger there. So we just cut to, they're already on the ground, they're burying their parachutes, but they don't have Lifeline with them. And there he is, he's hanging upside down in the tree. Now, obviously, that could have happened to any of them, but the choice to have that happen to Lifeline is great because it adds to that level of uselessness. He's stuck in the tree and he needs his friends' help to get down, setting us up for going, yeah, Lifeline, you're really useless. And Leatherneck echoes that with, this useless wuss is going to slow us down and bring smoke on us. Roadblock says, lighten up, Leatherneck. He might have to patch you up someday. And Leatherneck's response is, I'd rather bleed. And that's also great because that was Leatherneck's attitude on the show too. He was just very much like they're nailing it. They're nailing these personalities so great. And then Wild Bill taking charge of the whole unit because he seems to be the man in command. I feel like whatever rankings, Wild Bill usually takes charge when he's around. If there's no like defined leader. So Wild Bill's like, let's go, tighten it up and let's move. Meanwhile, over at the Crash Hind helicopter, a couple of the guard are banged up. Dinah's head is wounded, so she sounds like she's got a pretty good concussion. And the Colonel Brekoff says to take care of her, and her response is, he just wants to make sure I can see straight, because she's the sniper, remember, when they do come up on the Joes. What's the name? The big guy who's the best? Horror Show. Yeah. He sees the smoke and he kind of gets the compass bearing, so he figures out the way to go. Their mission, by the way, is to get that black box. Yeah, they'd love to kill the Joes, but they need to get that black box more than they're there to get the Joes. So Colonel Brekoff's got a broken arm. They head out into the jungle. They're crossing through the water. The Joes are now. The Joes are crossing through the water in another part of the jungle. And this is where Lifeline starts to show his worth. Who is that? That's a Roadblock asking if they got crocodiles in this parts. And Wild Bill's like, they got big crocs and little nasty bamboo vipers. And we're wading through like the worst part of the world for this stuff. And Leatherneck comes up with a bunch of leeches on him. Get these bloodsuckers off me. And in Lifeline, without missing a beat, he's not holding a grudge. He rolls up with some open matches and says, you got to use matches to get him off because otherwise the wound gets infected. And you have to make him back him out. And so they all have to take 5 for a leech break. And they were essentially saved in that moment by Lifeline. By the way, another life lesson that I had from this too. This is where I learned about leeches, because we used to go fishing. And occasionally we would run into some leeches that would occasionally catch on you. And we absolutely would we would do this. And again, I think this is the first time I learned this. So as they're sitting there, though, they hear a noise in the jungle. And this beautiful, I don't know, Bengal tiger, I don't know what kind of tiger it is, But this beautiful tiger comes walking out of the forest, and Roadblock is frightened. Leatherneck is. They're all three of them are frightened. There's the picture that Trimpe drew here gives them all this really cartoonish, like, even Leatherneck is like, oh boy. And Leatherneck's first to draw his weapon in a just very, just really succinct storytelling here. Even if there was no dialogue on this page, you're looking at this page, you got a top wide screen quarter splash panel of a tiger. Then you cut to vertical of those three going, whoa. Then you see one of them snap up a gun. Then you get Lifeline putting his hand in the way. And then you see the tiger growling. And then the tiger's face doesn't change all that much. I can't say there's like a lot of emotion being portrayed in the tiger. But it stops growling. And then just turns around and walks back into the woods. Like, no word balloons. This could be a silent adventure. This could be a page from a silent issue, you know. So really just nice choices. And it's from Lifeline saying it's just as afraid as you are. Don't make any set of moves and it'll all go away. We had a bear come once to a cabin. We were in Wisconsin, and this big bear, and I was a little kid, so to me it was massive, but it might have been, you know, a cub, but either way, it is a bear. And it was coming after one of it's like in a house cabin thing, so everything was, you know, put away in the house, but we had forgotten cooler, either with food in it or garbage in it or something. There was just a cooler on the back porch. You know the old adage, like, you got to put your stuff up in a tree, you know? Well, we had forgotten it out there. My dad and my uncle and my cousin and my dad's uncle, Uncle Joe, I believe I was named after. And I get woken up in the middle of the night, and my dad's like, there's a bear. Yeah, it's not the words he used. There's a bear on the back porch. So we go back there, and it was big. Like, you know, again, I was littler, so whatever. But it was a bear. And it was going through our stuff. And sure enough, my Uncle Joe runs out there, because it was going to destroy all of, you know, some of our things. And he goes out there with a tiny little pistol. He was not shooting at the bear by any stretch of the imagination, but he was going to scare it off. And he had like a little 22, like a bang, bang pop gun thing. And he's just yelling at the bear. And the bear looks at my Uncle Joe like, what? And proceeds to continue to go through our cooler of stuff. And Joe shot the entire pistol off, came back inside and was like, that's all I can do. I can't do anymore. That was very funny. It was that's one of my treasured memories. And the bear just destroyed the cooler. And the next day we just cleaned it up and dealt with it. But yeah, so that was my tiger coming out of the woods moment. Except we didn't just cool out and let him be. Uncle Joe. And by the way, Uncle Joe was out there in his boxers. That was the thing too, because it's middle of the night, so we were sleeping. So yeah, it was really funny and totally ineffectual. So there's a lesson: just let the bear be. So now we got the next page. We've got the October Guard. They're back on the trail. There's another page with weird register stuff going on. Like they're trying to do color holds, or like white holds on Colonel Breckoff's face. And I think they're trying to do it for like glare and like light direction, but it just looks weird because it also like the match, the color hold on the white color hold on the cigarette is lined up. So that means that the color hold on his face seems like they're trying to do that intentionally, and it just doesn't work. It just does not look good. I need to look into that, whatever this process was. It's a shame because there's some really great, just this era has a lot of this for some of these books. And this era has some really great artwork that just gets slammed by this printing process. But the Joes, they're trying to find their trail. They actually see the tiger trail and they realize that they're pretty big. Now what that's actually for is that's for us to tell us that they're on the right trail that the Joes are. So they're near the Joes. They're not going to run into that tiger or anything. Now down the trail a little bit, we see the Joes are coming up on a corner in the trail. And this shot is very similar to some of those early days Joe shots that Trimpe would do with tanks. Remember that tank fight in issue 8 or something, where the camera goes all the way in the sky and looks down and you see all the tanks in different orders, kind of give you the idea of the battlefield. And it's a real thin panel. The same thing here. He's got one widescreen with a close up and over the shoulder shot of everybody with Leatherneck in the lead, and then he's got 4 tall, skinny panels. And that's that second panel lays it out for us that the Joes are going to get ambushed, but Leatherneck sees it. And then he also smells Russian tobacco. I love that he identifies it too. So he yells to take cover. When he does that, Diana pops up and she shoots at him. Leatherneck gets hit a couple times, I think, in the leg and in the arm. He pops a couple frags and they land like murderously close to the October Guard. I don't know how the October Guard survived this, because it's not like they were in a tank. Like, they were just standing there, and these, and according to the animation, they're really close to where those frag grenades exploded. But it took out Shreg and Stormovic. Horrorshow's very upset. He fires off a rocket at him. And Roadblock and Wild Bill, they're on that, trying to suppress that rocket-propelled grenade. Meanwhile, Lifeline does not hold grudges. He shows up and he starts pulling Leatherneck out of the line of fire. And take it easy. Leatherneck saying, "You patch me up later. We got to shoot back." Hands him the grenade launcher. He's like, "Break up that ambush before we all get wiped." Now, this is key. And Lifeline's like, "You don't understand. It's against my personal beliefs to injure another human being. I can't do it." And Lifeline's response is, "But you can let them kill us." It's a good debate. I don't know what the answer is. He must be good enough that the powers that be, he's not hiding this. The powers that be know that that's his role. So he goes on these missions with him, like it's a moral question to have. Meanwhile, Colonel Breckoff is still firing and he hits Wild Bill pretty good. He actually gets him in the chest and, somewhere I think I hit him twice. Leatherneck says Wild Bill's blood is on Lifeline's hands. Lifeline refuses to even hold the M14. Is it an M14? I think there's whatever Lifeline's rifle is. He won't even hold it. And Lifeline throws him over his shoulder, and he's got to get him out of the zone. And he yells for Roadblock to do the same thing. And I love that Trimpe put Wild Bill's hat on Roadblock, because Roadblock's not going to let Wild Bill's hat get lost in the jungle. Roadblock's going to put that hat on and carry him out with that hat. So the Russians break off their direction. The Joes break off their direction. We've got wounded on both sides. The 2 hurt Russians, they are not capable of walking. Like, they're out. Like, so that frag really did get them. That was pretty appropriate. Colonel says we're going to have to carry him. Diana says the Joes are wounded too. Colonel says, like, the Joes are going to continue their mission, just like we're going to continue our mission. So even though everybody's hurt, like, there's no question, we're going on this mission. And we see that with Wild Bill. 1 slug went clean through his arm, but he did not break a bone. And then he's got a sucking chest wound, and that's the problem. Now, Lifeline says there's nothing he can do about that, which I get. Like, he's patched him up as much as possible. But, there's nothing he can do about it, which must mean it's not great. And that bothers Leatherneck quite a bit. He says, "Ain't that always the case? Take your useless hands off him. We take care of our own in this outfit." But Leatherneck, what are you going to do to save him? Like, there's nothing Lifeline can do there. He's patching him up as much as possible. Meanwhile, though, the Russians have reached the helicopter first. And Dana gets inside. And we see that actually Lifeline was within seconds away from getting that black box, which makes you go, "Hey, Leatherneck, like, maybe if you weren't riding him, he might have gotten the job done. And none of this would have been happening," right? Because Diana basically walks in and goes, "Yeah, it's ready to go. Here it is." Whoever did it disabled everything, which makes sense, because had it crashed with that anti-tamper stuff, it probably would have exploded, right? Or burned, or whatever it would have done. So Lifeline did save the day, but needed a couple more seconds to maybe get off his back. However, the Russians are interrupted by Roadblock and Leatherneck firing on them. Leatherneck being carried by Lifeline. So Lifeline's acting as like a human turret for Leatherneck, which is cool. And I like that, because it's his way of saying, like, no, I'm on the same team. Just don't make me do it. And as they're in this other firefight, Lifeline hears something coming up the river. There's some engines. The Russians hear it too. And we get some cool cool pirates. I don't know who they are. They're river pirates. They got boats with mouths on them. They look amazing. They're wearing red and blue outfits, bandanas. The lead lady is like just this dreadnought looking just river queen. It's great. And so they're rolling up on these guys, and they've outnumbered both sides. So they tear everything up really quickly. And the Joes and the Russians surrender pretty quickly. Her name is Sarawak Sally. Sarawak Sally. And I do with you as I please. And she is a number, ladies and gentlemen. So they've got them locked up. And they're not the only ones there, though. There were some other people. They don't really say who they are. But there's some other captives, other prisoners fighting each other on the deck. There's a bearded dude, a blonde dude. They don't really say who these people are, but one of them asks for mercy and gets no mercy. Sarawak Sally shoots the guy who lost the battle. And the Joes realize that's what they're in for. So they get hauled up on deck. They get told if they win, the winner of this bare knuckle fight, this is where the no holds barred storyline comes in. The winner gets to go free with a bonus. And Horshow's like, yeah, free on a stinking river 1,000 miles from nowhere. And she gets up in his face like, I heard that. Puts the gun in his nose. She goes, make sure this ugly one gets a short straw. So Horshow's definitely going to fight. And then on the American side, of course, Lifeline gets drawn. Leatherneck is not happy about this. And Lifeline's trying to explain himself. You know, I'm an official non-combatant. I'm a medic. It's like, don't, you know. And Horshow attacks him from behind. And this is where it gets awesome. We have one panel here of really great, like, judo chop. Not chop, per se, but judo redirection of energy. Or Horshow, who is a big dude. It's just flown in the air. Lots of action lines around him. And Lifeline is just untouched, and he slams him across. And we proceed to get this great page from Trimpe where he draws Lifeline so well and so stock still that it makes him look effortless. And I urge you guys, check this out. It's page 20. He says, you know, listen to me. I don't want to hurt you. And the horror show's like, you know, now we're going to get serious. And he draws it so well because horror show's literally flying. He's in the air in all these photos. He looks like, you know, airborne. He's being thrown like a rag doll. And the poses he has Lifeline in, I'm assuming are true. Later on they say it's Aikido. They're Aikido poses, which is where you take your enemy's momentum, right, and you turn it against them. So I'm assuming these are actual Aikido poses. But like it's like Lifeline's not breaking a sweat. That's what's great about these. So you've got these, you know, throw. One final throw where he is. It's almost cartoonish how stiff as a board horror show is hitting the stern mast or whatever that is. And Lifeline's still apologizing. Like, I don't want to hurt you. And then we learn in the next panel that Wild Bill says, well, Leatherneck is a gog. He's like, what? And Wild Bill says, it's called Aikido. It's a Zen martial art with no offensive moves. The purpose is to redirect violent energy away from oneself. ... Lifeline's a black belt. Sally loves it. She's like, now look aside. I'm going to kill that dude. And Lifeline gets in her face. And he's like, no, like, I'm not going to I won, but I'm not going to let you kill a dude for no reason. She accuses him of being greedy. Horshow's still staggering to get up. And she's like, you want everything. You want the black box? You want to save everyone's lives? Like, that's it. This ain't happening. This black box must be super valuable. And this is where it gets crazy. And Lifeline he does approach this problem like too many of us like don't approach problems these days, which is just being honest. Like, sometimes if there's a problem, just be honest with it. And he says, well, they're not worth more lives. They're not worth more like dead people. Like, they have a great value if you know what they are. And I'll tell you if you spare the Russians. And she says, tell me first. So he's like, all right, okay. He's like, an organization called Cobra. They'll pay a handsome reward to get those boxes back. They have a consulate building in New York. Like, he's telling her, you can take these there. But what he's not saying is they're useless to you now. Absolutely useless. You'll never go to a consulate building in New York. The Leatherneck's screaming at him, like, that was our objective, you just gave it away. And he says, well, if I don't use the boxes to buy back the lives of the October Guard, their deaths will be on his hands, and he can't play it any other way. And so she laughs at that. She says, you're all free to go, just because one of you has the courage of his convictions. And she offers these magical boxes back to the river spirits in celebration of their continuance of valor. And that's the story. So many, like, was he right to, like, did he break, I almost said break kayfabe. Like, did he break the, secrecy of the mission by telling her what it is? Like, should he have not said it? Like, I don't know. Like, does that really extend to his moral code of betraying the mission to save lives of the enemy? I don't know. But it does raise good questions. And I like the ambiguity that Larry ends it on. I will point out something, though, that I believe typically black box transponders are inside the black box. So when she drops them in the river, those black boxes should still be transponding. So you could conceivably follow up and get those black boxes out of the river. I'm not saying. I know eventually they would lose, transpondedness. But you hear what I'm saying there. Like, her dumping them in the river doesn't necessarily destroy those black boxes. So, but what a great story. What a great little moral lesson in 22 pages. I love it. I thought it was great. That was wonderful. I hope you all did too. Hope you enjoyed going along this ride with me. And thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon in a couple weeks. And now you, Joe. And Joeing is half the battle.